in love and loving somebody back.
Yeah.
Which is really, the ultimate fulfillment. The reason why we have to keep working and keep working and keep working and turn into a workaholic is because there is a monetary or a limited fulfillment over here.
Yeah.
So
Hey guys, welcome to Little Black Book. I just got a quick video, man. This is such an interesting conversation. Sorry about the sound. It probably echoed a little bit. I need to put my headphones in. But this is such a great conversation. Whatever you feel about Dr. Cheyenne, Bryant, and you know how I feel about her, this is one of the best conversations I've had in a long time. I'll tell you why. Because what she actually ends up doing is exposing the reality for Brother Shannon, right? And what he exposes is what we talk about in our coaching sessions a lot of times is the avoidant perspective. Shannon has grown up in an environment where he has been broke, poverty, fend for himself. And when you're in a space where you can't even get your basic necessities, there is no time for emotions. There is no time for, kumbayas and good feelings. You just need to be able to get your basic necessities. And so that takes precedence. The trouble with that is that the person doesn't then rebalance themselves once they've got their basic necessities and they've had the power to get it. What tends to happen is a fear of going back to that state now drives that person. So if you're somebody who grew up in a household where you were poor or you financially didn't have enough, or, there was some level of scarcity within that household, what you find is people don't do the work after that to be able to rebalance themselves because they didn't know they don't even know they need it at the time in place, right? They finally got power now. They were disempowered as a young child. They finally got power to actually begin to change their destiny. And then what ends up happening is as you get to an adult stage, your whole ethos is, I've got to maintain this. So you will hear Shay talk about how he struggles to be able to do love, and he runs away from love, right? And the reason being he runs away from that love is because actually love requires emotions, and emotions were something that he could not afford as a young child. You have to understand this. When you grow up as a child and you're given crumbs, all you ever know is crumbs. So him growing up in an environment where emotions are not taken as seriously because they don't pay the bills, right? What that child doesn't get is emotional capacity to be able to hold more weight when it comes to emotions. So when you're dating, what you'll find is people that are emotional or show too much emotion are going to overwhelm you. So when you begin to be overwhelmed, you begin to shut down. And if that happens, what you do is you have to push people away to disconnect in order to re-engage again. So too much information, too much energy, too much emotions coming your way will overload the system, and you have to push that person away. But depending on what kind of avoidant you are, because there is dismissive avoidant and there is fearful avoidant. These two types of avoidance are very different, but they have very similar traits. The fearful avoidant has both a dismissive avoidant aspect and also what we call an anxious attachment. And what ends up happening is they go into push versus pull, right? And with dismissive avoidance, what you get is there's a push, there's no pull, right? They may come back, but that's not a pull. They're not trying to pull you back in. Whereas a fearful avoidant will push away, regret pushing you away, and then want to pull you back in again. Right? So there's a duplicity almost in a sense, what we call hot and cold behaviors. Now, this is really important because when it comes to the wounds that individual people carry, for avoidance, they're always afraid of rejection. For the fearful avoidant, they're afraid of betrayal, rejection, and abandonment, but specifically betrayal. And when you are afraid of betrayal because you feel like you're not good enough, you're not valued enough, what tends to happen is you want to keep people at bay, but you want them at the same time, and then you are willing to give, you're willing to give and to get. You make it very transactional in your relationships, and so do dismissive avoidance as well, right? And the reason being, again, once more, is because you can't trust emotions. Emotions are not trustworthy at all to an avoidant because they can't be controlled, seemingly. Not recognizing that actually you have control over what you do as an action. The emotions cannot be controlled. What we're talking about is actions. Actions are the ones that can be controlled, but you're afraid of actions, but you're saying it's emotions. You're not afraid of emotions. You are afraid of the actions that take place when emotions come through. For instance, if you're jealous, it is a scary feeling to have when you're jealous of somebody else as well. But also what happens after is the actions that take place from that act, that emotion can be very scary. Why is it that you want to sabotage the person? Why is it that you want what you want? Why is it that you want to go there? Why is it that you want to do this? These are the thoughts that come into one's mind, and it feels like you haven't got control. But the reality is you actually do. But let's listen a bit more to Club Shay, because this is one of the good interviews. I won't be on here for very long. That's my famous last words. I'm gonna try and keep it to 20 minutes.
You have to keep to get it.
Yeah.
Like a drug.
Yeah.
To get it.
Yes.
But see, love is not like that.
It's not. I think, Doc, for me, growing up how I grew up and not having it just drove me. And that was the thing that I really obsessed about, was to see my grandmother not have to worry about bills and not have to worry about things. And so I just poured everything. God gave me the ability to be disciplined, be dedicated, and be determined. And so for me,
but not to a woman.
No, because if there was a choice, Doc, if I had a choice between work or woman, I'm choosing work.
But that's because work is safe for you.
It is.
What is so unsafe with you emotionally with the woman?
Now, she's about to touch on something so good in what she's about to break down. So I want to be able to touch on something here. What's really interesting about this conversation is, as he's just exposed, is for him, work makes sense. And actually, a lot of people, this is you. Work makes absolute sense, and relationships don't make sense. The reason why relationships don't make sense is because there is an element of unpredictability. This is where actually fearful avoidance, specifically fearful avoidance and dismissive avoidance, struggle. For dismissive avoidance, unpredictability is a problem when it comes to emotional unpredictability. It feels like the person is going to overwhelm you with their emotional dysregulation, right? And that's going to dysregulate you. That's actually the fear of dismissive avoidance. People who are dismissive avoidance, they struggle in the area of what? In the area of people being unregulated, because that dysregulates them. They don't recognize that actually, if they're dysregulated, why do I have to be dysregulated? Right? You've put too much power into their hands. Number one. Fearful avoidance. Two, also in the sense of the word, right, can be very transactional and very focused on work, because the equation makes sense. It can't betray them, right? And it doesn't reject them, and it doesn't abandon them per se, right? You know the equation. If I do X, Y, and Z, I get, if I do X, Y, sorry, I get Z. And so fearful avoidance and dismissive avoidance can be very transactional when it comes to work, because work is transactional. You work, you get paid. And it's very clear rules as to how you engage. You know, there are clear demarcations when it comes to how do you address your boss? How do you address your colleagues? How do you do a business proposal? How do you handle meetings? How do you get a sale? It's very much, it's very much, we can see, okay, right? We can very much see how this plays. This is very simple to understand. It's very routine. But when it comes to relationships have a level of unpredictability. Today, you can do good, and that good could actually be turned against you. You can say something nice, and the person can take it the wrong way, and they can now come at you. You can be a loving partner, and someone will say, you didn't see me. And all of this unpredictability puts the other person who's an avoidant in a place where they're now like, I don't understand this. I don't get it. I'm scared. Because why is this situation playing out the way it's playing out? Why is it that when people, when I done X and Y, it didn't equal Z, it equaled B instead, right? So this is really important when it comes to attachment styles, how the avoidants actually see things in relationships, and why Shannon is seeing it the way he is, because love is difficult. Let's play a bit more.
I think for me, I haven't had the best luck with women.
Why?
But I haven't been the best for them.
That's okay. Talk about the luck. What is the narrative around you haven't had the best luck with women?
Because I've never given them all of me like I have a job. I only gave.
I want to pause it right there, because he just said something so profound. He said, I haven't given all of myself to that person like I did my job. The reason why he's saying that, because he's not lying, number one. Number two, is because giving all of yourself means you can be hurt. This is a self-defense mechanism that he's doing, right? If I give all of myself to someone, this then gives them access to do the absolute most damage. Okay, so for Shannon, in his head, what he's looking at is, wait, if even the little I've given to people, they've hurt me, betrayed me, rejected me, abandoned me. So now, if I give all of myself, right? This person has not only the ability to hurt me, but they're gonna see all of me, and they can potentially still reject me and abandon me, which means now it goes back to the very core wound, which is if I am seen and someone sees all of me and they reject me, what value do I really have? Because even as a child, I wasn't fully seen. I was actually made to be invisible. And now I'm in a relationship and you want me to be visible? No. I can't show all of myself. This is how I protect myself. I can't have all of my foot in one area, because what if it goes wrong? And what you don't recognize is the fact that you're not giving all of yourself. As somebody said in the chat, yes, self-fulfilling prophecy. By not giving all of yourself, you're not giving yourself the best chance to actually explore love in its fullest way. And the reality is, if you don't give all of yourself, you are being deceptive. And when you're being deceptive, you actually meet other people that are Decepticons. That's the issue. You see, anytime you put on a mask and you wear a profile and you behave as an avatar, the person can only interact with the avatar. Just imagine being online, and when you're online, you're dealing with somebody online, right? You only get to see what character they put out to you. Now, that's really important, because actually, when you finally get to know who behind the character is, hey, you start to see, actually, is this person, right? Is this person somebody who is no, when you finally get to see the fullness of that person behind the character, now the person has to make an actual decision about who you actually are. You're safe so long as you're behind the avatar. Once the avatar disappears, the person has to judge you based on who you truly are, and that's the biggest fear of avoidance, especially fearful avoidance, but dismissive avoidance too. They're afraid of that, right? Because now the core wound can now be enacted. So yes, he hasn't given all of himself. Okay. All right. So this is really important as well. Someone said something. I'm sorry. I don't feel bad for these ex-athletes. They get praised their whole life. Then they want to go old and talk about how scared they are of love when they spent the younger years dragging them. Yeah, listen, it's not necessarily about feeling sorry for them. We're explaining behaviors, because actually many people are, you may say athletes. There are normal people in your day-to-day life have the same mindset as Shannon Sharpe. Shannon is not alone. This is not a Shannon thing. This is actually a human thing. A lot of people have the same mindset as Shannon Sharpe. You earn 30K, you do the exact same thing Shannon does. You go to a 50K job, you do the exact same thing as Shannon does. You earn your 100K job, you do the same thing as Shannon. You're an ex-athlete, you do the same thing as Shannon. This isn't about Shannon Sharpe being an athlete. This is actually about people who are unable to show their fullest because they're afraid of love hurting them. So what ends up happening for Shannon in this era, and I get what you're saying, so it's not a bad thing, but you've highlighted something very important. It is a thing where at points life's experience will humble you if you don't humble yourself. If you don't learn how to heal and come into relationships somewhat whole and doing some work to heal the past wounds, you're going to get exposed. Pride cometh before a fall. You know what I'm saying to you? Yes. So yes, his partners can't necessarily give their all, because he's not giving his all. They're interacting with an avatar, you know? So Shannon will come in there and do a bit part, but you will recognize that there's still more of him to give, and you never get it, right? So when somebody's actually in tune with themselves, when they are authentic, when they themselves are attuned to love, when I know when I'm in tune myself, I can tell when someone's not giving all of themselves. You can tell when someone's emotionally holding back because they can't interact with you in the right way. Why? Because when you give when you're giving when you're giving energy, when you're acquainted with love in its fullness, and you are fully authentic and settled with yourself, and you can see when someone is kind of like they're not being them. They're not fully being them. They're not able to love you in its fullest capacity. You can tell that there's one foot in, one foot out. They don't feel safe. You can tell these things when you're in tune with yourself, when you really are starting to be authentic as well. So it's really important, in that particular aspect as well. So this is really important.
Them what they couldn't hurt.
There you go. This is good. What is it that they could hurt? What's that?
Me.
What part of you?
My heart.
Mm-hmm.
That was hurt when? When was the first heartbreak you can even think of?
I don't even.
Who was it by?
I'm not even sure, Doc. Because
Was it by Dad? Where's Dad?
My dad died when I was 13.
Pause. Do you see what happened here? Immediately as he started talking about his dad, you see how his head dropped? This is very important. Body language tells us a lot, right? Shout out to Dr. Cheyenne Bryant because she is doing amazing work. I don't always agree with everything she says, but let me tell you this now. When she's putting her foot in something, she's putting her foot in something. This is excellent work from Dr. Cheyenne Bryant, okay? Now, the person who's supposed to care about him, love him, connect with him, has passed away at 13. By the way, there's more to the story because he actually begins to share that his his father actually was an alcoholic that couldn't see him. He saw him once, I think once or twice, and his father was embarrassed to show up in his life because he knew that he was an alcoholic and a drunk, right? So he knows the story. But you have to imagine at 13 or even before then, as a child, you have lost a parent, a caregiver instantly. You've got your grandma and your granddad, yes, but your actual parental father figure doesn't want to see you. And as a child, you're not able to comprehend that he doesn't want to see me because of what issues he's got. As a child, that's not how you reason. As a child, you reason this way. The parent doesn't want to see me because I did something. I'm not getting the love from this parent because I'm not good enough. I'm defective. I am not valuable. They don't love me enough because I'm not doing something correctly. Children internalize these issues. Okay? All right? So children internalize these issues. So this is really important now to start breaking down in this space because there are a lot of people walking around who have the same thing as Shannon. Broken, hurt, and in pain. Okay. Now, if you listen to what he says about football, yes, he does say something about football. Elson, what he says about football is that he understands football because this is something that he was good at. Some people are gifted. God gives them a gift. The Bible says that the gifts and talents will make room for you before kings and queens. God has gifted people. He was gifted with the ability to play football. He understood it, so it doesn't make so for him it's easy to learn because it was easy to do. But you will hear him say that there are things in life that are new to him that he doesn't want to learn because it's too hard to learn. And there's a lot of us like this as avoidance because the fear of failure is a real thing. The fear of failure is actually the fear of rejection. It's not the fear of failure. It's the fear of rejection from that failure. Will people laugh at me? Would they have something to say about me? What would they do? And in essence, the person internalizes that the shame and the embarrassment coming from failing will be too much to comprehend. What does that mean? They're not emotionally safe within. And I've gone through that myself, and I still have to go through that at points in time. That's not a done deal, right? I dance in the gym. I dance on TikTok. I have a big following on TikTok. But people don't realize there's a process before I even get to that stage. Before I start dancing in public, I have to talk to myself like, come on, bro, you can do this. Why are you ashamed? You want to be free. You want to enjoy yourself. Why do I do that? Because I recognize that there's a struggle behind the shame and embarrassment, right? So football is something that he understood. It made him achieve several different things. Number one, he can financially look after his family now. Number two, he was good at it. Maybe he felt like it was his calling, something he was good at doing. Number three, he didn't have to think about the emotional aspect when it comes to football. Sports, although it's emotional, doesn't get played in that particular sense, right? It's a bit like boxing. There's emotions involved in it, but you have to take some emotions out of it in some sense. You have to learn the principles of boxing or the principles of football. And once you learn that and you're good at learning it and applying it, you flourish, you fly. That's what he's telling you. When it comes to relationships, even though you apply principles at points in times, it doesn't always go the way you want it to go, right? That's what I said about unpredictability, okay? Sorry.
Was he with mom?
No.
What kind of guy was he?
I only saw my dad once to really know who I was looking at.
There you go. There you go. So that abandonment, that abandonment wound. What is your narrative about your father? What kind of guy was he to only have seen him once? Well,
when he and my mom divorced, my grandfather, growing up how we grew up, get divorced, the kids are going with the maternal grandparents, and that's what we did. We came down to South Georgia.
But let me word it different then. What kind of father?
I wish you would have. I wish you would have let him go a bit further on because I think he needed to be able to release some of that stuff that was important. But yeah. So what was important here is that as he was describing, his father only saw him once. And again, we don't have to look at it from an adult perspective. Okay. All right. We have to look at it from a child's perspective. Okay. A child, how do they interpret what's happened to them? And for a lot of avoidance, they can avoid the emotional distress that comes from the experience that they've gone through. What Shannon was doing here is it's not easy to go back and really be able to go back into that child and ask that question, what was I feeling in those moments? As an adult looking back at it, okay, you can rationalize it and intellectualize it very easily. And a lot of us do this. We intellectualize and rationalize the emotions like, well, my dad was busy. I mean, he was an alcoholic. That's why he couldn't see me. That's you rationalizing the feelings. That's the truth of the matter, but you're rationalizing it. If you were to talk from a child perspective, wow, it hurt to know that my dad abandoned me in that moment. I felt abandoned. That's how I felt. I felt like in those moments that my dad did not have my back. I felt in those moments that my dad didn't love me. I felt in those moments that my dad didn't care about me. I know he had an alcoholic drink problem, but why could he not stop the drinking to love me? Why is it that I had to have parents that, or have a parent or a dad who couldn't be there for me the way I needed them to be there for me? There were days where I was reading my books. There was days I was going to school. There was days I was fighting with other people. There was days I was thinking, why don't I have a dad who genuinely cares about me the way I see other people's dads care about them? Now, we're talking at the most extreme because not everybody has parents that their parents actually abandon them. Some people have parents that are actually present and there, but the parents aren't emotionally present. And you still ask the same questions. Why didn't my dad turn up to the show? Why didn't my dad or my mom turn up to my game? Why didn't my mom and dad? I know they had to work. See, and this is what a lot of people don't realize too. Like, you identify with Shannon a lot more than you probably realize. And I'm talking about people who have less of the crazy background of parents, right? Like, you can identify with Shannon much more easily than you realize if you pay attention to your emotions here. What am I talking about? You had parents, okay, all right, in this situation where they were both, you have both parents, lived in a house with both your parents, but maybe you also felt like, you know what, you didn't cry in that household. Your parents never asked you how you were doing. Your parents only cared about your schoolwork or what money you were bringing in, or they didn't really care. It never felt like they cared about you. They didn't turn up for your shows, your school. They didn't turn up for your accolades, your award shows. They didn't turn up for those things, right? They left you to handle things by yourself, right? You felt like you had to handle things alone. You've been doing your own life for a very long time. And you had both parents. These are also inflictions of trauma and pain. And these will create in an individual hyper-independence. And where you start being hyper-independent, you start lessening the dependence, or should say, quote unquote, lessening your relationship with emotions, because emotions don't pay the bills. They don't get jobs done. They don't make the decisions you think they should be making, even though emotions are a part of decision making. But hey.
Would you have to be to only see your child once in 13 years?
I think he was embarrassed.
About what?
Not being what he wanted what he thought he should have been. Not being there. My dad had some drinking issues, and he didn't think he was the father that he should have been. And I remember my grandmother, Grandma Charlie, his mom, told us that he wanted to come home, but at that point in time, he had both jawbones removed because of cancer, and he didn't want. He said Grandma Charlie, he called her Charlie. He said, Charlie, I don't want the kids to see me like this. And she said, Pete, they're going to love you regardless. They just want to see their dad. And he said, you know what? He said, you know what, Charlie, I'm going to come home in September. Yeah. Well, he died in August. And so, yeah, I would have loved, because when I played college ball and I played in it.
Now, we have to let that rest for a second, man. Imagine, this is a story he's been told, of course, because not everything he would have known. But your father was embarrassed to come and see you because he knew the state that he was actually in. He knew that he was not in a good place, drinking as he had cancer now. And now, because his jawbones have been removed, the embarrassment and shame actually isn't about Shannon. Even he's not, I wouldn't even say he's even embarrassed about the kids seeing him. The embarrassment is actually really the issue of his own embarrassment with himself. How he looks at himself, the father does not recognize who that is. He does not identify with the image he now sees in the mirror. So now his lack of safety within himself means now when it comes to you, he now feels embarrassed and shamed at how you may react to him because he doesn't feel confident in himself either. And that's tight. That's what we call emotional safety. And so now for Shannon, he's now going to feel the repercussions of that decision, right? Drinking, drugs, alcohol, all these kind of stuff, right? All right, all these kind of stuff, addictions, whatever. All these stuff can cause embarrassment. I ain't even gonna lie to you. Some of the things I did in Egypt, I'm kind of ashamed of. I ain't gonna lie to you. I was out in the streets. I was out in the streets. At some point, I looked at it and I was like, damn, that's embarrassing. That's a bit shameful. Even for me. I don't even have no kids. You know what I'm saying to you? And the way that shame and embarrassment works is very much like Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. As soon as you feel shame, you see yourself being naked. And when you feel yourself being naked, what do? You hide. So before you even jump, this is biblical. This happened in the Bible already. And see, when you're not accountable like Adam wasn't, the immediate thing is to not be accountable, is to shift the blame to somebody else. Because Adam was ashamed because he was not emotionally safe in this moment. He had come out from the protection of the Almighty because he had done something he knew was bad. He had given into the woman and also given into eating a fruit which he had been told not to eat. And now they both knew they were naked. Their eyes have been opened. And immediately what do? They go and grab fig leaves to cover themselves. The Lord is asking, where are you, Adam? Where are you? And Adam is like, it's the woman you gave me, my guy. Instead of being accountable. So shame and embarrassment and a lack of accountability will cause you to pass on that blame, and now somebody else is going to be affected. Don't get it twisted. Eve was a part of the problem too, but Eve was not the only one. So when Adam then decides to push the blame and not be accountable, Eve now gets a double whammy. But at least with Eve, the Bible says that you correctly place the blame on who it was. You've been deceived by the enemy. This is important, right? So the importance of fatherhood is quintessential. The importance of a head is essential. The man in any relationship is is so important, the decisions you're making and the healing you're supposed to do, because you impact not only you, but your generations after you. I'm not saying women don't have to be accountable. What I am saying, though, is as a man, when you're called to leadership, which is what we've been called to as men in this society, as God has created it. He has created us as patriarchs. However you feel about patriarchy, it's up to you, right? But he's created us as patriarchs. Therefore, we have far more actual influence than we like to think. Your decisions are not only making decisions for today, but they are for generations. This is something that God had to highlight to me. I thought I knew that until I was on the streets. And when I came out the streets, I said, damn, I almost did things that were about to create legacies that I could not actually stop. I was about to create a lineage and some behaviors and a legacy that would have not been sufficable, only by the grace of God. So I don't want to judge someone like Shannon who's got multiple children in multiple homes, because we could have been there by that point. You having sex with multiple people, you could easily be there. You know, you can easily be there. You know what I'm saying to you? So this is important now. It's important. Okay, it's important. It's really important.
And I saw all guys have their dad in the locker room or standing on the sideline. I used to think, man, it'd be so cool to have my dad here and to be a part of this. But it didn't happen. But my grandfather died when I was 8, and that's who raised my grandmother and my grandfather. But
so wait, grandfather died at 8, dad died at 13. Bro, where the male figures at? His brother, his older brother, was his dad. That's what he says later on, right? And I'm gonna end it here because I think I'm gonna end it at this point. All right. This is really important, right? This is really important because his brother became his brother became now the person who was a leader in the household, right? And it's so important in this scenario, I think, because the father figures were removed, which means the knowledge that they had would have also been lost. The lessons that he would have learned through observation have been lost. And I think this is really important, right? So the grandma has to play a matriarchal role for a man who's born into a patriarchal society. And this is really important, right? Because we need both sides. We need a matriarchal and a patriarchal. When I say by that, I'm really talking about the energy. That's what I'm talking about. We need both the woman energy and the man's energy. We need both, feminine and masculine. You need both to be balanced. God created it so. And so when you only have when you have an overriding arching of one and not the other, or a lack of information coming from the masculine side, the man has to figure out a way to get that information. And oftentimes the streets will teach you, football will teach you, TV will teach you, some random person will teach you. Someone will teach you what your masculinity is as a man. And if it's incorrectly taught, then behaviors are incorrectly done. This is why the Bible says, we paraphrase the scripture in the sense of saying incorrect belief leads to incorrect behaviors, in a sense, right? So in this instance, him not having that information is so key. And this is what causes the fear behind women. This is what causes the fear behind feminine energy, because actually, whilst you may want it in sex, you don't want it in a relationship because you're not sure how to maintain it. And actually, really and truly, because you have not been taught how to maintain that, in this essence, when you're dealing with somebody, from your perspective, when they start behaving in a particular way, you can only go on based on your experiences. If those experiences have not been positive, if those experiences have led you to a place where it's pulling something out of you that you don't want to be pulled out, they're doing something, they're making you feel some things that you don't want to feel, then what's going to happen is going to reject that immediately. And yeah, I want to pause it here, man, because I think we spoke about this deeply, and I don't want to go too long. I will come back and I'll probably do a short video, release a short video a little bit later on. But I hope you guys are blessed. Stay locked and loaded. We'll see you again very, very soon. Much love.